Hi, so we are going to discuss this question. This is a hard level GMAT question. The topic is inference. So let's understand the passage first, line by line, word by word, what it means, make connections, then look at the question stem, and then eventually move on to the answers. So a theatre critic is saying that the play La Finestrina, now at Central Theatre, was written in Italy in the 18th century. Alright, the director claims that this production is as similar to the original production as is possible in a modern theatre. So he's saying that this production is as similar to the original production as is possible in a modern theatre. So basically, it seems as if this production is not the original one, but this is trying to be replicated in a modern theatre. And as per the director, this is as similar to the original production as is possible. Although the actor who plays Harley Quinn the clown gives a performance very reminiscent of the 20th century American comedian Groucho Marx's comic style was very much within the comic acting tradition that began in the 17th century Italy. So, although, what does although signify? Although signifies that there is a slight contrast. So, although the director is saying that the production is as similar as it can be to the original one in a modern theatre, and then he says, although the actor who plays Harley Quinn the clown gives a performance very reminiscent, it reminds them of the performance of the 20th century American comedian. But, right, after comma is that although this is happening, but this is the scene. So he's saying Marx's comic style was very much within the comic acting tradition that began in the 16th century Italy. So he's saying that Harley Quinn is giving a performance very reminiscent of the American comedian Groucho Marx, but Marx's comic style was very much within the comic acting tradition that began in the 16th century Italy. This totally Harley Quinn is not able to totally replicate that, right? So these are the connections that I'm forming. That uh, the play was written in the 18th century, and the director claims that this production uh, is as similar to it as possible in a modern theater, and the actor is trying to give a performance which is very reminiscent of the 20th century American comedian, but the American comedian was different in this manner that his comic style was within the acting tradition that began in the 16th century Italy. So he's, I think, trying to signify that uh, as the play was written in the 18th century, probably it had some thing to do with this acting tradition, and it might be the case that the current play is different from that play because of this certain difference, right? So let's move on to the answers. The considerations given best serve as part of an argument that. So I think he's trying us to do, what he's wanting us to do is that from these considerations, we have to find out an answer that best serve as part of an argument, right? So we have to find out a conclusion to that. So he's saying modern audiences would find it hard to tolerate certain characteristics of a historically accurate performance of an 18th century play. Well, it never said that the modern audience would find it hard to tolerate. Firstly, this performance is not historically accurate, right? He's saying that it is as similar to the original one as possible, but it may or may not be historically accurate. And where did we even talk about modern audiences finding it hard to tolerate certain characteristics, right? Uh, it's not mentioned. All is mentioned is that this current actor is trying to give a performance which is reminiscent of the American comedian, but it is slightly different. So we don't know why it is different, and is it different because audiences can't tolerate or not. So wrong according to me, wrong choice. Groucho Marx once performed the part of the character Harley Quinn in La Finestra. It is nowhere mentioned that Groucho Marx once performed the part of the character. Although they are mentioning that the Harley Quinn's performance is reminiscent of the 20th century American comedian, but they never said that this American comedian was in the La Finestra, right? So he's just talking about the comic style. It's a separate thing, right? So we can't say that. It's not mentioned there. So not mentioned that Marx played played a part in the La Finestrina. In the US, the training of actors in the 20th century is based on principles that do not differ radically from those that underlay the training of actors in 18th century Italy. So, uh, in order to answer this, firstly, is trying to compare training of actors in US with training of actors in 18th century Italy. All right. Now, 18th century Italy, in 18th century Italy, the play was written. Now, we don't know about how the training of actors happened in Italy in 18th century, right? This comic tradition was in 16th century Italy. Now, Harley Quinn is the Groucho Marx is a guy who was acting in around 20th century. So, so Groucho Marx, what he did, the way he acted, the kind of principles were reminiscent of the 16th century Italy. So we do not know whether this happened or not. So we can't answer that. This is not inferable. The performance of the actor who plays Harley Quinn in La Finestrina does not serve as evidence against the director's claim. I think this could be a good answer. You know why? Because Harley Quinn, the way he is acting, the way he's acting is reminiscent of the 20th century actor Groucho Marx, which was his comic style was very similar. Harley Quinn's comic style was very similar to this guy. But we cannot still infer that the new act is in the modern theater which is happening is any different from the actual 17th century Italy act, 18th century Italy play. So, although he gives this reasoning to explain that, uh, I'm still not satisfied if this is a good answer. So, this could be the answer. keep. And further, he writes the director of La Finestrina must have advised the actor who plays Harley Quinn to model his performance on comic. I mean, this is a very vague choice. How could we know that the director of La Finestrina must have? I mean, when he writes must, when the GMAT is writing must, that means we have to be 100% sure of this, right? How can we be sure that the director of La Finestrina would have advised the actor who plays Harley Quinn to model his performance on very vague? So, in my opinion, D should be an answer.